I asked him the question. I said, can you 100% tell me if my membranes were to break early, basically, that my baby would survive or not survive, or any of these things would happen? And he's like, no, I can't promise you any of that. And I said, okay, well, I'm staying here.
Welcome to Healthcare on Trial, where we put real stories on the stand because the people this system calls members, we call hostages. Well, thank you for being on, Danielle. I'm so excited to have you. Before we launch into all the things and everything, can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Of course, that's the hardest question of the day. Thank you for having me. My name's Danielle Cruz. Is that good for the intro?
That's good. You're like, I need no introduction, mic drop, good to go. Do you want to talk a little bit about maybe what you do, and then I'm going to lead you through some of your background, and then we'll get to the hot topics of
the general
healthcare.
Spiel.
Perfect.
Grew up in Southern California in San Diego County, and so I was total beach girl through and through. I have not left SoCal, probably for that reason. Farthest north I've gone is Los Angeles.
It's probably the furthest north.
Yeah, I'm not moving out of state. I'm not doing the cold. And so now I'm an attorney still living in Southern California, and I have two girls who are 2 and 3, and they are crazy and drive me crazy all the time. But obviously I love them.
I know they are a big subject of conversation, or at least the process of getting them into this world is a subject of conversation we'll get into. What type of law do you practice?
Currently, I do employment litigation defense. And so I've kind of done that probably for about 4 years now. And then before that, mostly just general liability defense work too.
Have you always wanted to do that? That's what you woke up at 8 years old to want to go to law school for, right?
All the attorneys listening will be like, nope, never. I never dreamt this in a million years that I would be doing litigation, and here we are. No, so kind of step back. The reason why I went to law school in the first place, I had these really big dreams and aspirations of being a sports agent. So I played Division I softball back in college when I was, athletic, and now my athletic ability is declining substantially. And I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. That would be really cool. And then you get to law school, you learn a little bit more, and the pool of sports agents is much smaller than you thought. Not that, it wasn't, I can do anything I want to do, but it's kind of one of those things where you're like, oh, okay, let's see what else is out there. And then you kind of fall into something. And so I think a lot of attorneys out of law school probably do fall into litigation, and that's kind of where I fell too.
Was there a specific agent or somebody that inspired you to want to be a sports agent? Or was it just competitively playing sports through college and you're like, I want to stay involved in that aspect of it. I want to take it to the next level 100%. Type thing.
I think it's growing up, sports is your life. You make it to college, you're able to play at this level. It's your biggest passion. And you're like, okay, how do I keep this passion within my job? Right. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of all I knew at the time is, okay, I know sports. I know that I love, and I know that I like it. How do I incorporate that into a career? And so I was like, well, law school sounds great. Let's just go ahead and do it.
And I feel like you did a lot of beach sports when we were in law school together. And yes. I was like, you're like, let's go. I'm like, I was delayed entry to law school when I was an old adult. And I'm like, no way, I'm going to break my leg if I go do this right now.
That's why I say I would hit my prime sports wise. And if I tried to go play beach football right now, there's no way I would die.
Yeah, I think we could do it. We just need the geriatric league that we're going to be a part of instead.
I'm good for the drinks and the food after the game, not the game itself.
Need to be flag football or a normal
100%.
Easy version, kids version of it.
That'd be fine.
Okay, and did you meet your current husband in law school?
Yes.
Why did I say current husband in law school?
Hey, current, you just never know these days. He's going to be like, excuse me.
Yeah.
Yes, I met my only husband as of now in law school. We actually had our very first class together, first day of law school. We were obviously not together at that time. So as the years went, and they always say in law school, you might be dating somebody now. It's the very first speech they give. You're probably in a relationship now. You will not be with that person at the end of law school. So we were both kind of in separate relationships at the time. And I was like, there's no way And lo and behold, that relationship did not last. And
were we at the same orientation?
did you remember this?
I thought the version of at least the one that I remember, I think maybe I wasn't listening to the dating people in law school part because I was married to a prior husband at the time. But I thought what they said was like, remember the part where they're like, take a good look around at the person to your left and the person to your right, and you do, and you're like, great. They're like, it's likely that one of those two people won't be here after year one because we're going to fail 50% of you because we're on a curve, and we're like, oh my God,
I remember
we get ourselves into.
Yes, that too. They were that. And then someone brought up the relationship thing. They were like, so you're going to fail and your relationships are going to fail. So I guess one of the two happened to me.
Well, you're an anomaly then. You guys persevered. You're good to go.
It worked out.
So you guys were like same path, always wanted kids, were ready. Like you were on the same path the whole time?
No, my husband was like, I think on board with like having a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't know if it's like a male thing where you just, maybe some males are different, but he was like, yeah, I never saw myself like having kids. It's not like a woman where you're like, oh, I dream about having these children. So yeah, he was on board with like having a child. So we were like, all right, let's do it. We were blessed that it happened quickly for us for the first go.
It's the push and pull of a relationship, right? Like when one's like, I don't know if I'm quite ready yet. And then you have the other person who's your counterbalance. And whether it's having children or it's buying a house or it's, whatever the next step or next big decision is in the relationship, as long as one of you is, pushing the other one forward and hoping for. But when you guys went through your first experience of pregnancy together, before we dive into like the details of what happened, Danielle, what would be your recommendation to like, cause you're educated, you have you know how to advocate for yourself, you know how to research things, you know how to analyze and solve problems. Mm-hmm. If let's say like for general viewership, somebody gets pregnant, how do you pick a doctor? What's the first thing you do? Like, great, we're pregnant, and now what?
Right. I feel like for me personally, and I'm sure it's the same with other women, it's like, where did my friends go? Who else do I know that had a baby around here? Or like who, like even for like a primary care physician, I'm like, all right, who do you guys go to? Who's cool? Like, like who provides good care? So I probably would ask my friends first, and then probably see what's close to me. I'm not trying to like drive an hour probably to like go to all of these appointments. So maybe doing that, looking on whatever, insurance I had at the time, who's in network for me, what are those providers? Honestly, I really look at people's pictures. Like as however that sounds, I kind of troll them and I'm like, oh, she looks nice. Or, if you want a male or a female, and you kind of funnel it down from there.
Yeah, I like you're taking me back to when before I was in the industry and I'm looking for my first primary care doctor. I'm like trying to read up on their resumes on the website and like, oh, she went to UCI for medical school. I went to UCI for undergrad. She seems nice. Let's go see if like it resonates. Right. And they always ask like, were you referred to us by another doctor? So your recommendation would be is referral based, right? When you know people that you trust who have had a good experience. Making sure they're in network for you so it doesn't cost some astronomical amount when you go to see them, and like finding something to connect with that individual, right? To kind of build that rapport and trust. There isn't, from a tool perspective, there isn't like something that we can all access to say like, here are all the data metrics that make them great.
Right.
Like, I think these levers are important. Spit that into a tool and then tell me which doctors fit my criteria. Oh, and by the way, I'm not driving 3 hours into North LA. Right. I would want it to be at least conveniently located, which living in, Southern California, you should have hopefully good access to providers here. Proximity, referral based, and some sort of trust and connection with them to see if they would be a good fit for you. Did you interview multiple OBs, or did you end up getting referred to somebody that it worked out great?
I think it just was one of those things that it worked out. My first appointment, I felt very comfortable with this woman. She seemed like she was there to sit, not rush, answer all of your questions. So it's kind of one of those things, you kind of get a vibe, right? You kind of have to be like, what's the vibe with these people? Do they seem kind of educated in, answering your questions the way that you think that they should be answered in detail. But I think it's just how a lot of people go in. You just go in and you don't really know. You don't know what you're getting into, or, say you've been diagnosed with something, or say you're just going for a general OB appointment. You don't really know what to ask or what to do because nothing has come up that's been like, oh, wait, I need to ask these questions. It's kind of you live and learn at the same time.
Healthcare is one of the largest and fastest growing expenses facing employers today. Yet billions of dollars are lost every year to billing errors, unnecessary charges, waste, and a lack of transparency. Most plan sponsors never know where those dollars go. That's why US Beacon exists. We believe every healthcare dollar should be accountable. As an independent medical and pharmacy claims auditing and review firm, we work exclusively for employers and employee health plans, not insurance carriers, hospitals, or providers. Our independence allows us to follow the evidence where it leads, uncovering billing errors, payment discrepancies, contract compliance issues, and opportunities to reduce unnecessary healthcare spending. Our mission isn't simply to identify and recoup savings. It's to restore accountability to a healthcare system that too often operates without it. We help plan sponsors understand where their healthcare dollars are going, protect the assets they've entrusted to their health plans, and fulfill their fiduciary responsibility to the employees who depend on those benefits. That's why we're proud to sponsor Healthcare on Trial, because informed employers make better decisions, transparency creates accountability, and when accountability exists, healthcare works better for everyone. US Beacon, when healthcare is on trial, the evidence matters. Yeah, especially like experiencing something for the first time. And at the time you were on, I think you mentioned this to me earlier, you were on a PPO plan, right? So as long as you looked online and they were in network, that was confirmed by the provider's office, you were good to go, versus like you've probably been on an HMO before. They require like a referral, and the primary care doctor kind of controls which OB you see, which could be anybody. The choice pattern becomes a little bit limited in that scenario. Do you want to dive into kind of your experience in your first pregnancy?
Oh, yes, we can dive right in. Okay, so first pregnancy, everything's going well. You kind of get up to the point where you go to an anatomy scan. It's about between 18 to 20 weeks of gestation of your pregnancy, and they kind of go through and they do, is the baby growing? Is there any issues? So during this initial exam, it's just through the regular OB's office, kind of whoever the sonographer is there. After that exam, the sonographer did flag some things for me. And of course, didn't tell me what, and was like, okay, you're going to be referred to the maternal-fetal medicine specialist. So the specialist that is in a different OB office. So I go for the same exam at the MFM's office, and it was, hey, everything looks great, but you're actually flagged for this condition called Vasa Previa. And that was kind of it. The doctor, the specialist came in and said, you have this condition, you have a C-section at 37 weeks. We'll see you in like 8 to 10 weeks or whatever for your next scan. Like, see you later.
Can you define what Vasa Previa is? And did they do that for you in that moment?
They did not do that for me in that moment. Okay. And so Vasa Previa is basically an issue with the placenta, and there are different types of Vasa Previa. So just generally, it's where fetal vessels that are supposed to be within the placenta are actually exposed, and those unexposed fetal vessels are running over the cervix opening, and the cervix opening is where like the baby comes out. And so the issue with having, the diagnosis of Vasa Previa is you don't want to basically go into labor or have, there's so much with this, so I'm trying to simplify it. You don't want those vessels to burst, because if the fetal vessels burst, then your baby's going to die within seconds. And so going back to, hey, you're being diagnosed with this, not really an explanation. You're going to need a C-section at 37 weeks. We'll see you kind of get in, get out. And so, you go home and you're like, that seems weird. Like, what is this? And you start Googling, you start diving into everything and really trying to understand what the condition is, and then seeing what the outcome could be. Should something catastrophic happen, it's like life or death at that point.
And it's from what I recall and what you have described to me before, it's not just the baby who's life could be at risk. It's also yours depending on the type. Are you comfortable sharing a little bit more about the type that they had diagnosed you with after you went to Dr. Google and probably
Yes,
called back and asked a billion
I
questions to
did.
try to figure out what was going on?
Yes. So go to Google and it's, hey, should things be diagnosed? Which, in order to have a diagnosis of Vasa Previa, they do an internal ultrasound, a transvaginal ultrasound combined with a color Doppler. And what the color Doppler shows is either the mom's blood running over the cervix, or it'll show an indication of the baby's blood running over the cervix. And so that's kind of how they flag it. We're very lucky that that's usually part of protocol here in the United States, but it's not like that in the world in other countries. So there's some catching up to do. So go back to Google. It's, hey, if this isn't managed properly, or there's a premature rupture of membranes, what they say, those vessels are bursting, your baby's going to die within seconds. And so it's okay. What is the protocol? Why hasn't anybody told me a plan? And you see all these articles of, okay, this is how things should be monitored. Some are suggesting you be hospitalized early at 32 weeks just for monitoring. Should something go wrong, you're in the hospital. You can be booked in for a C-section within minutes, hopefully, and you're giving your baby the best chance of survival. And so that's kind of where the light bulb went off for me is, why am I not being offered, these different management options? Why is some guy choosing how I'm going to monitor my body and my baby? And so I guess with Vasa Previa, it's more so, I guess, catastrophic to the baby itself. I don't think that it is really a crazy issue for the mom, like losing blood or anything like that, unless you kind of have some other conditions combined with that.
Gotcha.
So I was diagnosed with Vasa Previa type 2 initially, which is where you have two lobes of a placenta. You have a big placenta, and then you have a small placenta, and it's a lobe. And the fetal vessel, the unexposed vessel, is the one that's like connecting the two. And so that vessel is the one that's lying over the cervix. And so there's type 1, which is filamentous cord insertion, and I could be saying that wrong, so nobody come at me.
I don't think
And then
anybody's
there's
going
a
to. You're
third,
fine.
there's like a third type, I think, where a vessel actually comes out of the placenta and back in. But it all has to do with the location of it and it crossing the cervix.
So yours was type 2.
Correct.
And you were given we'll call it a treatment protocol or a recommendation from the doctor. One, you walked away not really knowing exactly what it was until you Googled it.
Correct.
And then you searched all these different pieces of potential of treatment. It was anywhere from monitoring to hospitalization to ensure, the highest likelihood of your child surviving if something were to go wrong. And no real advice or guidance on what the best protocol was for you, or let's say what was the standard of care for Vasa Previa at the time. There wasn't really options outlined for you and for you to decide what the best thing was for you based on maybe severity or progression of pregnancy or whatever it was.
Right.
So other than Googling it and scaring the shit out of yourself and then probably calling back with 900 questions, and how did you figure out what the best next step was for you? And it sounds like you probably challenged your provider's recommendation on the best treatment path for yourself. So can you talk a little bit about how you made your decisions on the best possible outcome for yourself? Right. I'm trying to keep it clinical, but it is very emotional. And to be given you that kind of news during your first pregnancy, at the point in the pregnancy you are, your hormones, all the things, let alone the risk potential of what the outcome could be if this isn't managed well, can be devastating to a family. So how did you, because you obviously had a good outcome, so there's a happy ending to the story.
Yes.
How did you decide what your next step was going to be, and what was your next step?
So I called back, you're right. I read, there was, minimal studies, literature online and studies with small groups of people, and I wasn't happy with that. So I called back and asked a million questions. And the main question was, okay, well, you're saying I'm going to be outpatient monitored until 37 weeks for the C-section. Then, like, can you guarantee that nothing's going to happen to my baby in that time? Like, can you promise me that? And the doctor said, no, like, even if you were to have, vessels burst in the hospital or if at home, your baby's going to die. And so that was the turning point for me. I was not happy with that answer.
What was this your OB or was this a specialist for Vasa Previa? Like who were you dealing with?
This was the specialist. So this was
Okay.
the maternal-fetal medicine specialist who they normally, upgrade you for high-risk pregnancies.
Okay. And their recommendation was it wouldn't matter what setting you were in.
Yep.
Your child's going to die if something goes wrong. So it doesn't matter if you're in the hospital or not.
That's correct. Yeah. That there were like no other options. So I said, yeah, that's not going to work for me. So, I need to get a second opinion.
Yeah.
I need to, like, who knows about this? Do I know anybody who's been diagnosed with this before? Like, there's got to be something out there. So I went to my network of people and, I feel pretty privileged. I feel like I have a good network of people. I've got some people in medicine, some people, not just people to bounce ideas off of, right? So I had a friend say, hey, our good friend's mom, I think that like she used to do this type of stuff. Here's her number, give her a call. I give her a call, and it turns out she was the head nurse for a fetal surgeon in Southern California for 35 years, who directly handled this condition, other crazy conditions where a fetal surgeon performs surgery in utero, like while the baby is in the stomach. And so she goes, you need to get a second opinion. Those guidelines that you've been given or, this care, she's like, it's not sitting well with me. It's not something that like I've ever heard of. So let's get you in. So she texted the people who still work at this fetal surgeon's office, and she got me an appointment like within 2 days.
Where was this? This was in Southern California as well, right?
Correct. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So out in Pasadena. And kind of like backing up in big picture, with Vasa Previa type 2 specifically, there is a laser procedure that you can have done that basically ablates that little lobe I was telling you about. There's 2 placental lobes. If they cut this lobe off, which you don't usually need it, then that resolves your Vasa Previa. You won't have, the possibility of those membranes rupturing and your baby not surviving. So I was like, yes, if I'm a candidate, I'm going to go and do that.
And you learned about this when you went and got the second opinion from someone you were referred to who they weren't sure if they were still practicing, but they could at least get you to the right person. It's critical because like you could have gone to like whoever down the street and like looked up on Google and they could have confirmed the same treatment path and protocol that your original specialist had recommended. So like I'm highlighting that because I don't think it's just about the second opinion. It's about getting the right opinion as well
100%.
that aligns with your core philosophy on what you expect, what level of care you are expecting from the provider. And I'm making up a stat, but like 90% of people would just, when they're told to do something by their doctor, they're just going to do it. So I don't want to underscore the importance of what you said, how you went about finding somebody, referring, like I've heard from people say, if you want to figure out like the best doctor to go to in a facility, talk to another doctor that's not in that practice to find out from them who they would go to, because they're going to send you to the person who can actually like save your life or hit the objectives you're trying to hit, et cetera. But sorry.
I got very lucky. It was like the best second opinion I could have gotten. It's literally the hierarchy of like OBs, MFMs, all these people, he's like the fetal surgeon who sees all these crazy conditions, right? And kind of, has the education and the background to really provide that opinion. So we go in, we get the opinion. I'm ultimately a candidate at the time. So we say, hey, I'm going to go through with this procedure. He asked who the doctor who I was working with, and he's like, oh, I've worked with that guy for like 20 years. And I just didn't even understand why, if I had the type of Vasa Previa that could be completely resolved with the like laser procedure, why why was he not educating me on that? Why was that not an option for me? Why did I not get the literature on it? Why did he not send me for a referral to this guy? So that was also mind-boggling. Short form of the story is I go in for my pre-op to have the laser ablation surgery. And unfortunately, the doctor says, I'm not comfortable performing this procedure on you. You might have a couple of types of Vasa Previa combined versus kind of what we saw initially. Things kind of move. There's a little bit more like vessels than we expected. So we're not going to go forward with it, but I'm going to call your MFM, the other guy who was helping me, and we're going to discuss a plan of care for you. And he said, there are not any hard, plan of care. There are suggested guidelines at this point for this condition.
Yep.
And it's, okay, you should be hospitalized for monitoring at 32 weeks, and you should have an early C-section between 34 and 36 weeks. So that's already completely differing from what, the initial plan was. And so we go back, I try calling and I'm like, hey, I'm not a candidate for the procedure. I'm almost at 32 weeks. We need to be admitted. The main guy was out on vacation for maybe like a week or two. So he wasn't there to say like, yeah, sure. Like, let's do it. Let's get you in.
And he was the one who originally understood everything that had gone on and was in agreement on your treatment plan so hospitalization from weeks 32 on until you had the C-section.
Right. So that was the fetal specialist. He goes, yep, that's what we do. That's what the suggested guidelines are. The MFM, like I like to call him, he's the one that said, you can be outpatient monitoring, just come in at 37 weeks for your C-section. And so I wasn't comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm.
And
I will say,
yeah,
I think listening to your gut is really important in these situations.
Oh, yes.
And when you know your body the best and you understand what you're going through and what you will and won't be comfortable with, aside from all the advice and everything else, you're feeling this. Like I know what the right path of care is. And at the time, I believe there was no standard of care for Vasa Previa or the type that you had. So you're getting a range of recommendations from probably the least safe to the
Right.
safest option.
Right.
So you as the individual or the person who's going to be going through this experience should have some directive in the safest way, right? If one of the
Right.
providers is recommending the safest protocol for you being hospitalization from week 32 on, and I will have, we see the perspective of what that looks like from an employer perspective, from a large claim perspective, but considering what's at stake, always trust yourself first.
I just don't understand. Why would you not take the most conservative route if it's literally someone's life? And it's not, years and years of hospitalization. It's a 4-week hospitalization, or maybe it's a 2-week, depending on the patient, or, it just like blows my mind that you're going to be hopeless either way. So we're just going to not even offer that. And then to kind of go back, it's when doing the research, is there anybody else that has what I have, like this condition? Has anybody been diagnosed with it? I feel like this day and age, we're lucky, maybe. It can go both ways of, okay, I searched on Facebook. There was a Facebook group of women, hundreds of women who have also been diagnosed with this condition. And it's kind of everyone's posting about experiences. People are asking questions. People are asking advice. People are sharing their stories. So it was a really good way to gain knowledge. It can also be scary, right? Because a lot of people post a lot of the things that are catastrophic. But I think it's something that really kind of puts a light bulb in your head of like, oh, okay, I need to ask these questions. This could be my outcome. Or there were women in there who were like, I was hospitalized. Thank goodness my water broke at 32 weeks and they were able to get me in for a C-section within minutes and my baby is here. And so to kind of hear all those things and to have a doctor say, oh, it's not going to work out either way. Again, it's your gut thing of like, that's totally wrong. You're like, you got to be kidding me. So,
good thing your gut was right in this scenario, but it was a journey.
So hard. It's so hard because you sit there and second guess yourself the whole time too, right? Because you have these doctors who, a lot of us in society like look up to these people, right? They're very well educated. They probably know a lot more about all of these things than I do. But you have to kind of be confident in what you're feeling and confident in what you're reading, you know. You can like educate yourself on all of these things.
And there's always the human element that sometimes gets lost in this, right? If you're working with a provider who has seen so many cases, and 80% of the time, even those that he recommended to be hospitalized may have lost their child. I don't know. And they're just making a database recommendation of low likelihood of survival. So, doesn't matter. And not keeping in mind that if you are one of the 20% that does have a successful outcome, that's life-changing for you and your family. That's so important to you. Like, you've been pregnant for X amount of weeks so far. You're attached. You have a bond with your child. You're going to do everything you can to ensure that you see this through. And you're going to do everything you can to protect your child and make sure that they're going to be okay. So you called the person that's
It's a whole mess.
Yeah. They're on vacation.
I called. Main dude who would like admit me to the hospital was on vacation, and I said, all right, who else is in there? Because we are showing up. I'm going to be admitted. I am going to be monitored. Like, this is what's happening. And the decision wasn't always within that confidence. It's so much second guessing yourself. Like, am I doing the right thing? Like, you kind of are like, oh, I don't want, these doctors to like say anything differently or to like treat me differently. So anyways, we go to the hospital, we show up. The other specialist who was probably, on rounds or on call that day is the one who like approached me, did an exam, confirmed again my condition, which is all in my charts. I've been there. I have the condition. The fetal specialist called, also tried to discuss a plan of care with somebody. So he sat me down. I'm in the hospital and he's like, I really don't think you need to be here.
And I'm going to add something to your story, but I want you to keep going on this. And this is just because my memory and what I remember as part of this, the insurance side of this, usually it's the other way. Doctors are recommending something and the insurance part saying, not approved. We're going to stand in the way. We're not going to pay for it if you do it. Tell me if my memory serves me correctly, this was already pre-approved by your insurance for you to go into the hospital. Am I remembering this correctly?
So, and it might be a little gray area. So I definitely was pre-approved for the procedure. And, that specific fetal surgeon's office does a really good job of like learning the right way to submit those and to really push for approvals for their patients, which I think is amazing. I don't know if I had a pre-approval yet for the hospitalization. So I was really rolling the dice with that one.
I think your family and your network was working on that for you simultaneously and got that done for you.
I was like, fingers crossed, man, that's going to be a big bill. But we would try to like, I guess, cross that bridge once you get there. But again, it is one of those things of added stress of like, if you can't pay for that or like, exactly. Like, can we even do that? So we just really went for it. And he said, I don't think you can be, he's like, I don't think you need to be in here. I think you can be outpatient monitored. And again, I asked him the question. I said, can you like 100% tell me that like, if my membranes were to like break early, basically that my baby like would survive or not survive or like any of these things would happen. And he's like, no, I can't promise you any of that. And I said, okay, well, I'm staying here. And so I got a room and I stayed there for the next few weeks. And on, every OB, every MFM rounds, a different provider comes in to check on you. And every single one of them had a different opinion on what my standard of care should be. Some of them said, I think it's great you're in here. That was probably only one. And that was my personal OB who I went through first. She was always there to support me, which was wonderful. But every other one was, well, I think you could have waited until 34 weeks. Or, oh, I think you could have waited. I don't think you need it at all. Or everything was different. And it was just so confusing. And again, you continue to second guess yourself while you're in the hospital.
So you have differing opinions across all providers you're coming into contact with. While you think you know the path that's going to be safest for you, you're getting differing opinions and people telling you that maybe you shouldn't be in the hospital, et cetera. your support and sounding board is a Facebook group of women who've gone through the experience. So I just, in listening to this as a benefits community, as a medical community, we have to do better for people. This is one of thousands of areas where people don't have any support to try to figure out how to navigate, are going to listen to the first person who gives them an opinion. They're not going to know what to do in a situation where they're getting any differing opinions from people in what they should do next. It's really scary and very sad.
It really is. I couldn't imagine. And I mean, it's just one small piece of everything, right? It's crazy. So, we continue to be monitored. I get daily monitoring. Finally, the MFM who was taking care of me, he's kind of on board with it. He doesn't really have any choice. I feel he understands, like, hey, I'm here to stay.
You're not going anywhere.
I'm really not going. He knew I was that type of patient. But he did ultimately end up moving the C-section up from the 37 weeks to 36 weeks, which is, what I was pushing for. And again, it's patient by patient. Should you have preterm labor concerns in a prior pregnancy, then you should probably have the C-section earlier to avoid those problems. So we have a beautiful daughter, and there were no complications between that time. And we are so fortunate to be in that position to be saying that, because I know that there are a lot of women and a handful of women who were not so lucky.
Is Vasa Previa a genetic condition?
No, not to my knowledge. I don't think that they understand how you develop it. It's the same chance.
Randomized.
Correct. It's the same chance of getting it in every pregnancy. I don't have a predisposition to it. I don't think they even know truly what the stats are on it. They say it could be higher for IVF patients for whatever reason. I don't know, the whole physiology behind it. But it could be like 1 in 2,500. It could be all the way up from 1 to 6,000. It kind of just depends. And again, because some do resolve towards the end of their pregnancy.
Gotcha. Oh, well, that's encouraging.
Right.
And hopefully there's a level of monitoring that helps shed light to where, if you are planning, like if you're having a C-section, when to plan that. When they did your C-section, right?
Yes.
Were they able to see the blood vessels?
Was there any pull feedback? Up the pics of my placenta right now on camera?
I'm actually good with that. But what did you learn as a result of that?
My condition was confirmed, and the main doctor actually apologized and said, "This is like the craziest vessel that I've ever seen." And he was like, "I'm so sorry. It was very validating that, hey, I made the right decision. Something could have gone wrong, and we're so blessed that it didn't. But should it have gone wrong within that time frame, I'm hopeful that I would have at least been, giving my child the best chance of survival. If I were to stay at home and not advocated for myself, and something, God forbid, were to happen at home, I don't think I could have ever lived with my decision to not trust your gut and to not advocate for yourself."
I think that's really important. And it sounds like after they saw the severity, size of blood vessels, had you not been hospitalized, and, I'm sure the protocol is you can't move, and, it's like prison, and you get like an hour of sunlight per day, and, you just got to lay there and no sudden movements till you have the C-section. To know that was worth it, right? Because while you may try to follow that protocol at home, it's not going to be enforced in a way to ensure that you don't put yourself in a situation that could cause one of those blood vessels to burst.
Right.
Or whatever.
And there's so many monitoring, they really are just mainly trying to pick up whether or not you're having contractions. The biggest thing would be like going into some type of preterm labor. And I've never been pregnant before. I don't know what that feels like. Or, some people might not even know it. And there's not enough studies to show if there's a correlation between going into any preterm labor and this condition. Mm-hmm. There might not be, but to me, there's not enough knowledge in studies to really sit down and say, like, is this going to happen? Is this not?
Yeah. And we think about the side of the industry I'm on, and we grandize benefits, and it should be the most important thing that everybody's talking about at all times. But for a lot of people, it isn't. We talk to employers all day. Their day jobs are, practicing law or teaching classes or making widgets. It's not, worrying about the benefits and what's going to happen when you do have to use benefits, but they do care. when the time comes that them or their employees or their families are going to need to have to access care. And to know that something like this occurs and there's no monitoring equipment, like you're going through pregnancy for the first time.
Right.
There's thousands of people, probably hundreds of thousands of people going through pregnancy for the first time and don't know what contractions would feel like. Or there are tools out there that can help them monitor it if they are outpatient versus not.
Right.
I don't know the answer to that. I think that there should be.
Right.
In ways to support people in kind of their care path. Had you made a decision that was just listening to the first person, the outcomes could have been a lot worse. Thank God you went through the process on saying, I'm going to trust my gut. I'm going to push to advocate for myself, even if I feel a little bit gaslighted while I'm here, having multiple people give me differing opinions on why I shouldn't be here. You stood firm and made the best decision for your daughter in staying there and ensuring her safety to the best of your ability. And I think that's like really important when you're getting a differing standard of care across the board and your support group is a Facebook group and that is your access to resources. Do you feel like awareness around Vasa Previa or the standard of care has evolved since the time that you had your first daughter?
Maybe a little bit. And well, yes, a little bit, because there are, so at the time, there's probably only 3 fetal surgeons who performed that procedure, the laser ablation procedure that I was talking about for type 2 in the United States. Nowhere else in the world, just the United States. I believe that there are 1 or 2 additional fetal surgeons who are learning how to do this procedure for that condition specifically. So I'm hoping that that is providing, others with the ability to, travel to see these individuals and to resolve their condition. Widespread throughout the entire world in different countries, I think it's just OB care in general probably needs like a huge step. We're so blessed to be living in the United States, specifically Southern California, where I feel like we have so many providers, so many options, and we do follow, at least a typical standard protocol of like how people are seen and treated. There is one doctor specifically, and I'm going to butcher his name. His name is Yinka Olisi. He has really dedicated all his time and effort and energy into Vasa Previa specifically in advocating for, what this protocol looks like, getting more information, talking amongst other OBs, other experts in the field, and saying, hey, like, what are the studies? What do they show? We need more, and we need to keep pushing forward. So I think if there's one individual, and again, he is actually also on the Facebook group, which is really cool. And if people have like these crazy questions, he'll actually come in and comment on it. So you have like an expert who's just chilling on a Facebook group, providing, some advice. Like
Feels
every
like
now
we
and
need
then.
to amplify his voice on the topic for sure.
Yes.
It's, you hit so many aspects of why this topic is so important. You advocated for yourself in a time that nobody else was able to. And it's so important for so many people, women, to ensure that they know they have the power to do that. Access to providers is critical, right? I mean, this doctor is proactively trying to go out and spread the word and help people and answer questions where he feels like he can add value or help somebody.
Right.
But you were on a PPO at the time.
Correct.
The specialists you saw, thank goodness, were in network for you. But had they not been, you probably still would have gone down the path of seeing them and, planning for the costs accordingly. And a lot of families don't have access to that, right? If they were in a HMO setting, they would have been referred to the specialist tied to that medical group. And that's the only access they would have had.
Hard to get a second opinion in that world.
Very hard, unless it's somebody else and you have to wait 6 months. And
well, especially like during, I think, your pregnancy, aren't you like only allowed to like switch doctors if you're under a certain amount of weeks? I don't know. I could be butchering that.
There's all kinds of rules associated with who you can see, when you can see them, what the wait times are, right? If you're on an open access plan or a PPO, there's more flexibility for doctors to see you, because if they are a network, there's a fee for service billing component to that, where seeing the patient, taking the patient on, it's billed accordingly, versus the other setting, may have a per patient bill rate, or they work the same amount of
Right.
time. So the wait times are much longer. And a lot of these conditions have
Oh,
a
yeah.
time clock associated with
Mhm.
them, demonstrated uniquely by your example of if you had waited or not gotten the right opinion from the right provider at the right time, not just the second one, it could have been the seventh for some people where they finally got
Right.
to an answer or a level of understanding where they felt like they could really weigh in on what the right plan of care was for them. You don't have that access in a lot of scenarios. So it's really important to amplify the message around this, empower people to advocate for themselves, but also advocate for the ability to access the providers who are best in class in the field. And this is one area of medicine. Think how many other areas people could use the help and are also suffering and going through things that maybe they don't have to.
Right.
Had they had the tools and resources and the ability to advocate for themselves.
It's crazy.
So I know
It
I'm
really
making this
is.
more depressing. You have more of the uplifting aspect of this. And then parallel that with, I'm assuming, because I think I recall correctly that your insurance did end up covering your hospital stay.
Oh, they did. Yes.
Okay.
They did. And then I think we got the final bill. I think it was close to $1 million, maybe.
That sounds about
For
right.
only 4 weeks. I mean, like maybe a little less. I was like, that's a little pricey.
The different levels of care, which I feel like we could do an entire separate podcast on, the different levels of care, considering, because this is also the care then post C-section, the C-section
Right.
component of
Right.
it. So it's your kind of full
Mhm.
encompassing hospital stay and all of the things that happened. But it is not cheap. Healthcare is not cheap in this country. And I'm just really happy to hear that when you were going through that, you trusted your gut and you made the right decision for you and your family that resulted in you having a healthy daughter. And then you went through
Totally.
your second pregnancy post that experience.
Yes.
What was that like?
I was also, so I went to the same OB and she was wonderful. She said, okay, we'll scan you here and we'll also really rule out Vasa Previa. Cause I'm like, if I have this thing again, I swear, like, here we go. So we did that. And she goes, I also want to send you out for a second opinion to give you peace of mind. And so it was just really cool and nice to have like a doctor say, you know what, we're going to give you that. But because you had like PTSD basically from your first pregnancy, I want to give you peace of mind and I want to send you out for a second ultrasound as well.
Yep.
So second pregnancy, super easy compared to the first. And I was just thankful I didn't have to be put in the position to crazy advocate for myself again, because it is exhausting and you do feel crazy while you're doing it.
It's probably hard enough to go through a regular pregnancy, let alone have to add the stress and the component of fighting for the life of your loved one at the same time.
Totally.
Those are the words that come to my mind. But your daughter, I'm trying not to use names. Your daughter is very lucky to have you and to have a mom who would, go against the grain and push for something that's so important in ensuring the safety. And we do trust sometimes blindly what people tell us, and it's just important to expand your sphere and have the right resources advising you and making sure that you are getting all of the information before making the best decision that you can for your family.
Right. I think we're so lucky now with the internet and, ways to network with people that you might not personally have yourself. Just with anything. It could be health related, it could be work related, it could be whatever. So I think if anybody else is kind of in the same position, like do a little bit of research. Literally just type in your question into whatever search engine, ChatGPT, whatever it is, and then look at the Facebook groups. There's Reddit. There's like all these crazy things, right? So a lot of the information might not apply to you, but at least it's ways to give ideas, communities to reach out with. If there's somebody who you're like, wait, that person seems like they're going through what I am, you can like message people these days. You can message strangers and be like, do you have a time to talk? And then there you go. There's your network. There's your connection. It doesn't necessarily have to be, kind of like within your own little umbrella of people.
Yeah. So your advice is be resourceful, take advantage of the tools and resources
100%.
that are out there today. It would almost be helpful, and maybe this is like the next evolution of what AI is going to do for us in the healthcare space. Like, what are the statistics? What are the different
Right.
standards of care? What are the paths and the stats by hospital of what the care has been and what was successful?
Right.
And even if there is a like, and how is success defined? If 20% of patients with your diagnosis went into the hospital and were successful in giving birth and having their child, that's successful, right? So how do we to me, what that is if it was that versus your first doctor is like, it's not going to make a difference one way or another. It doesn't matter if you're
Right.
admitted or not. If the success rate's only 20%, what's being done to ensure that the success rate is increased from 20 to 50 to 60 to 100% if somebody with a Vasa Previa diagnosis is admitted to the hospital
Right.
during that 32-week on time frame? If they had type 2 and all of the conditions that you had, that
Right.
would result in that safest protocol for you. And for those that did not have a great outcome, we're going to frame it that way.
Right.
What are the ways we can adjust the standard of care and how they're cared for in the hospital to ensure that they do have a successful outcome?
Right.
I think the data was looked at and a recommendation made versus seeing what they can do with the information to improve it. And frankly, the information should be widely available. It shouldn't be in a medical journal that's only
Right.
accessed by X and an opinion given without sharing. And it's, I've talked to providers before, and I know you've gone through this as well, where you go, like, what are you basing your opinion on? And I probably have a little bit, when I'm stressed out, I have probably more of an aggressive way of asking a question versus it's probably a better way to ask it than what's your opinion based on? What data? Like, what information did you base your recommendation on? Can I see the studies?
Right.
Can I see what the outcomes are? Like, why do you think that? Help me understand versus tell me I have a condition that you didn't define, that I don't understand, that I'm going home and going, wait a second, after being overwhelmed and going, what just happened in there? Then looking it up online, freaking out,
Yes.
coming back to you, and then deciding to go find a second opinion and having an element of luck that helped you down this care path of ensuring that you made the best decision.
Right.
We've got to do better.
I know.
We have to do better as a benefits community. We have to do better as a medical community. And there's a lot of good forces, like there's solutions coming to market. We were, I think, earlier talking about the AI that could potentially, like you can load all your stuff in, it's Chat GPT Health, and it can answer questions for you. And in some states, I think prescribe. And then there's a counterpart to it, which I forget the name of the company, but similar, that's also rolling out that we're all announced last week. But that's the start of hopefully an aggregation of information to really put tools in the hands of people to help them through this. But community is also a really important part of it, right? If you didn't have the doctor that you mentioned, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his name, on the Facebook group and the other community of people who, when you're going through it, to have the not so great stories shared, but also the ones that were good to kind of give advice and push to validate maybe your decision making. I feel like that type of support is also important.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, just knowing what other people go through, right? And feeling a connection. You're not alone, again, is like another big part of everything. And you're not alone in advocating for yourself. Others have had to go through and advocate for themselves too.
Yeah. Learn from the path of others. Why you're here, to share your story, to help anyone who's potentially facing something similar, to shed light on it and help educate. So in summing this up, Danielle, how would you is there like a quote or a verse or something that really encompassed either this experience or something for you that really resonates?
I mean, I think it's just one of those things, and we've said it, but you have to just go with your gut. I think that there's something for us as humans, or, should you be a mother or pregnant or carrying, you just have this intuition. And if something is not sitting right with you, your body can tell you a lot. And if your gut is telling you this isn't right, then listen to it and just keep asking questions and keep fighting, for answers or the second opinion or the seventh opinion, or whatever it might be, because, there are, there are good doctors out there, and there are great places where you can get good care. And I think that you kind of just got to find that.
Yep. That's a mantra we all need to live by. Trust your instincts and
Right.
listen to your body.
I know.
I'm with you.
I could do that more often.
Yeah, me too. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much, Danielle. This was an amazing conversation and really appreciate you being on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and kind of shedding some more light on Vasa Previa, because I know there's other moms out there who maybe will be listening and have gone through something similar.
100%. Thank you so much.